What happens when the biggest benefits cliff in U.S. history collides with the biggest fiscal and monetary cliff ever? Well, looks like we're about to find out. Hi folks, Wealthion founder Adam Taggart here with a quick explainer video on one of the biggest stories not getting sufficient attention right now. The reduction and expiration of federal unemployment benefits to nearly 10 million Americans. That's 3 out of every 4 people who were receiving unemployment up until this past week. This expiration represents the largest benefit cliff ever for the U.S. To recap, in response to the tens of millions of job losses resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic last year, Congress passed the CARES Act and then the American Rescue Plan, which issued an unprecedented amount of emergency federal employment benefits to laid-off workers. These extraordinary payments were distributed under 3 programs, the PEUC, the PUA, and the PEUC, all of which started in 2020, were extended several times, and just expired this past Labor Day weekend. With their expiration, roughly 7.5 million Americans will lose all of the federal unemployment benefits they've been receiving. Another 2.7 million will see their benefits cut by $300 per week. This is a stark cutoff, as most recipients were receiving over $25,000 per year from these programs, which collectively injected over $268 billion into U.S. households, and thus into the economy. The instantaneous loss of these weekly payments to 10 million Americans will have implications economic, financial, and social. But make no mistake, this will be deflationary to consumer spending. Those benefit checks, stimmies as many called them, have been used to buy everything from essentials like food to discretionary items like cars and travel to meme stocks and speculative cryptos like Dogecoin over the past year. As I've reported on this in the past, the expiration of these benefits also correspond with the recent expiration to the federal moratoriums on rental evictions and home foreclosures. So not only are these folks losing their benefit checks, but millions of them may soon be at risk of losing the roofs over their head as well. Yes, this is a sad mess, but the hits keep on coming. Despite any deflationary impact the end of these benefits may have, price inflation looks likely to continue to rise through the rest of this year. In fact, Johns Hopkins economist Stephen Hanke predicts that the official CPI may reach as high as 9% by December. So millions will be squeezed hard as the cost of living essentials keeps rising and having to figure out how to meet them without the unemployment income they've become accustomed to receiving. Now, the potential good news here is that there are a record number of job openings available right now. In fact, critics of the extraordinary benefits that have been paid accuse them of providing a powerful disincentive for people to look for work until now. So many of those losing benefits should be able to land jobs, which is a far preferable outcome to dependency on entitlements. But then there's another important shoe waiting to drop, the second cliff in today's story. It's the very real possibility that both the monetary and fiscal stimulus spigots will soon be shutting off. Since COVID hit, the Federal Reserve has more than doubled its balance sheet, injecting over $4 trillion into the system. Not to be outdone, Congress has passed nearly $6 trillion in fiscal stimulus alongside it. But now, spooked in part by the rising inflation its very own monetary stimulus helped to create, Fed Chair Jerome Powell is taking great pains to communicate that the Federal Reserve will start tapering its support soon. And Congress is finding much less political will available to continue the stimulus on the fiscal side. The latest $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill is facing stiff resistance from several moderate Democrats, without whose support the bill will not pass. Critically important vote Joe Manchin from West Virginia recently issued an open letter in the Wall Street Journal to express his concerns that Congress has spent too much and needs to put the checkbook away for a while. And all this matters because, as Michael Pinto puts it here, this looming monetary and fiscal stimulus cliff could very well be the trigger that pops the asset price bubble in the financial markets.
So you have the biggest fiscal cliff coming, the biggest monetary cliff coming, and that's why I think the chances are for this, the greatest bubble in the history of bubbles, which is the US bond and stock market is going to most likely implode next year.
And of course, COVID remains a huge wildcard here. Surging cases from the Delta and other new variants raise the potential for resumption of business restrictions that would also be highly deflationary. I warned of this possibility back in July, and now look at how hospitalizations have roared higher since then. If we look at the last week or so, maybe they're in the process of topping, but it's too early to tell, and we're about to head into the fall and winter seasons during which virus transmission tends to thrive. So, is the combination of all of these factors why markets have started suddenly shuddering? Again, it's too early to tell, but these are big developments that will exert downward pressure on financial asset prices if they indeed fully come to bear. So be sure your current investing plans factor these risks into account. And whatever follows next, we'll be monitoring it closely here at Wealthion. Thanks for watching.